We'll get back to the agenda after that short little recess. Tonight, we have city council goals. We have people here, so I'd like to propose to city council we get through the agenda items and then get back to the goals tonight.
Nice.
And remembering that we do have the goals, kind of try and make this an efficient meeting tonight. So with that, I will adjourn to the City Council policy meeting today, Tuesday, February 6th at 6:08 p.m. Call to order. Tonight we have present Councilman Podeska, Wilden, McComber, myself, Barch, and Porter. So we do have a quorum. Invocation by Councilman Porter, and then a Pledge of Allegiance by Dylan of Troop 1161.
Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this opportunity for us to gather together as members of this community to discuss the issues facing our city, and we ask Thee to please bless us that tonight we'll be able to have the spirit of discernment, that we'll be able to view these items before us and make the decision which is in the best interest of the citizens of this city. And we ask Thee to please watch over the first responders that serve in our city and nearby cities, and also to watch over men and women serving in uniform overseas. And we say these things in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Dylan, if you'll come up. Either one.
Make the audience please rise. The Pledge of Allegiance after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The audience may be
Thank you. Public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments. We didn't have any public hearings tonight, so please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please be respectful in your comments. Please avoid repetitive comments. Mark is our official timekeeper for comments, so if you're up here, please come up and state your name and address for the record. Anybody here for public input? Okay, seeing none. Oh, sorry.
Not fast enough.
You gotta be quick here.
I was waiting to see if anybody else was more, up for this. My name is Brandon Beatty. I'm 1749 Lindy Lane. I was coming just to kind of ask and encourage support for the 55 and older community that is proposed for the north side of Saratoga Springs. I think this is a great addition. We have a lot of families in that area, and we also have a lot of parents who are getting older, and they want to find something that's smaller and closer to all of those families in that area. As you know, some of you know, I help out with Shea Park with the railroad. I think having the community close to the park, I mean, most of these homes are within about 500 feet, would be a great chance to have a 55 and older community that close to such a great park. And as residents out in there, we would like to see residential over commercial. Far, far more desirable for us up in that area. So I would just ask that the City Council look at, the great benefits that having a 55 and older community in that area would provide for the residents around us. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Anybody else here for public input?
My name is Aaron Delahunty. I live at 443 West Aspen Hills Boulevard, and I just wanted to avoid quoting what was just said, but just let you know that I agree with my sentiments are the same. I would rather like to see the 55 plus community there. I think it would be great for our residents here in northern Saratoga. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public input portion. We'll move on to reports from the council. Councilman Podeska.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity today to attend the Lehigh Chambers luncheon for awarding, actually there's quite a few awards on various businesses that have stood out in the community. For our city, we're awarding Tenny's Pizza for their outstanding contribution to our communities. And so Kevin and his wife and son were there. So it was a great opportunity to honor him and his family and his businesses that he's had here. So,
Councilman Wilden.
Councilwoman Barch and I attend the Utah League of Cities and Towns, ULCT. Yeah, Utah League of Cities and Towns. Obviously, like normal, lots of things of interest we need to worry about. And I voted appropriately aye and nay. I'll let Councilwoman Barch speak to, or Mark speak to any specifics that everyone should be. Yeah, for the legislative session. Thank you.
Councilman McComber.
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay. Councilwoman Barch.
Just a little bit of follow-up on what Councilman Wilden said. On the legislative session, this legislative session is very interesting. The residents really need to pay attention. The legislature is making a major, major power grab over local control. And so instead of you as residents being able to control our land use as we go through our zoning processes and go through our land use maps and things like that, they're doing a lot of things to take over that control and to try to force higher density housing on us. Also, they're actually creating their own oversight committee that is taking over some of the state auditors' control, that is taking over some of the judiciary's control, and is taking over a lot of the city's control. So I will be putting out some more information on some of those items, but just kind of go through the legislature, through the legislative calendar and through the bills, really pay attention and absolutely voice your concern to our legislators. Both Representative Moss and Senator Andrigg are very good about getting back to the residents and hearing their concerns. So I encourage you to talk to them, and if you happen to know any of the other legislators as well, talk with them. I think that this is a huge concern this particular session, as they are really overreaching their authority.
Okay, Councilman Porter.
I'm youth council. Councilwoman Barch and I attended the local officials day. I think Michael was there also for. We missed each other, but it was a great opportunity to see the Saratoga Springs Youth Council, and they debated some topics, and it was a really neat experience. And so
per capita, we have one of the largest groups.
So it was a really neat chance to see them getting involved in their state and city government. So.
And then this last week was MAG meeting in Provo for the region for the roads. Saratoga Springs, we were able to get vice chair on the MAG board and obtain voting seats on the prioritization committees for roads. So that was good for us. Owen, do you have something for tonight?
Yes, just give council an update that we are currently evaluating the request for proposals for the architectural and design services for the public safety building. Per our purchasing policy, once we've evaluated all the proposals, we'll provide a memo with who we're selecting, but then we'll move forward so we won't have to wait for our next council meeting to bring it forward. We can get going with them on the project. So we'll inform you once we've made that decision, and also the firms once we've made our final decision. So.
A couple of other quick items. Gordon informed me this morning, earlier today, that we are about 30% done with our design for the Riverside Drive connector piece. So we're moving forward with the engineering on that. We're following the alignment that hugs the back of the homes, as we've previously discussed, and so we'll be moving forward with that, coming forward with that design. We are going to need to do some wetland mitigation, so that's going to slow down our process a little bit, so be aware that that's going to be coming up. And then Chief Burton, is he here?
Mark, kind of with timetable for Dalmore?
30% design, we're still probably a few months away from having it completed, especially where we have to do some wetland mitigations. So we're still determining the area that we have to mitigate, as well as, you know, what's the appropriate process. There will be some permitting that we'll have to do as well to make sure that we've checked all the boxes from an environmental standpoint. But it's moving forward, and like I said, they're about 30% designed. Probably about the time that we're 60% design is when we'll start getting good construction numbers and some ideas on some of those final figures, and we'll bring back more information as we've got it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, I've been asked to give you an update on a couple of cases that we've been working recently. Last Wednesday evening at about 5:45, we received a call on a suspicious circumstances in the vicinity of Saratoga Shores Elementary School. This was on Grandview Boulevard. The report was that a black truck had stopped and offered a ride or tried to pick up a young girl, an 11-year-old girl that lives in the area. We put some cars in the area to look for the suspect vehicle, and the officer that was assigned made contact after searching the area without finding the vehicle, made contact with the complainant and learned that the complainant who called the police department was actually a friend of the mother of the girl. It turns out that the mother of the 11-year-old had posted something on Facebook but not called the police department. And so I guess we're not sure why that took place, but we made contact with that mother and got all the information we could, talked to the girl, began an investigation, but the information provided was somewhat vague. We only had a black pickup truck as the suspect vehicle with no other information. And we did have a little bit of a description on the suspect. We put out a attempt to locate broadcast for all the units and gave a intelligence bulletin to all our officers to be on the lookout in that vicinity for black truck. The neighborhood, of course, was also aware via social media of the black truck, and so they were keeping an eye out for black trucks. So yesterday, someone spotted a black truck and seemed to think that it was suspicious, and it might have been. We responded units to the area. We located the black truck and the suspect. He did not match the description of the original case, but there was some suspicious activity involved with this individual who happened to be a subcontractor for one of the homes that's under construction in the area. That occurred on Jubilee Drive, by the way, and the girl in that case was 10 years old. So it was a similar kind of a case, but didn't seem to match as far as the descriptions given by the two different girls. We did have a couple of doorbell videos. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but we obtained those videos. We located the truck and the suspect. We detained him for questioning for a short period of time at the scene, not to the police station, but we took all the information we had on that particular case and talked with the county attorney that's assigned our area, Tim Taylor, to see if there was any possibility for a felony type charge. But it doesn't meet the elements for any of the felony charges that we could connect to this kind of a case. But he did refer us back to our own city attorney to look at the possibility for some obstruction of justice, a misdemeanor crime on the second case. We posted on our Facebook, on the police department Facebook page, and I think the city put it over on theirs, I'm not sure, but we had the information out fairly quickly as far as what we were looking for, even though it was kind of vague. And I guess we're taking it seriously, and we're looking into every possibility and every lead that comes our way. So, do you have any questions? Or
I just appreciate the follow-up because it did create a lot of frenzy on social media, and I hope that this type of information, and David, if you could even go on social media with this update, and help people understand that it is being taken seriously and following up. I think that it would help people from being citizen police officers, as much as I want them to be aware and to communicate, but taking action into their own hands. There was some concern about that. And
we didn't have a lot of replies on our posting on Facebook, with the information that we were looking for, this black truck and so forth. We had just a couple of comments, I think 4 in total, that said, hey, thank you for looking into it. but we didn't get any information.
It's the neighborhood Facebook pages that get out of control.
If I can just add to that, because Chief Burton and I were kind of working on this, I was getting calls from the media, and the media was trying to decipher, is it gossip or is it a concern?
Right.
And the main message that Chief Burton and I talked about and that I communicated was, we're going to look into everything regardless of whether we're sure or not, whether it's gossip or something reality. We're going to look into it. But the key is, if you have a suspicion or a concern, just call the police directly.
Yeah.
Don't go on Facebook. Don't talk about it on Facebook. Now, I didn't share it on the city's main Facebook page because the city's police Facebook page is kind of intended for community policing. And so questions or reports of things should go directly to police officers. If you have any tips, feel free to make that on the police's Facebook page or call the police station directly. We just want to communicate that with the public because we don't want to create a frenzy. I had another situation on the back end where someone was concerned about someone that was doing some work on the side of their house with a black truck. Turned out it was Questar. Changing out a meter. And so there was kind of this almost frenzy. And we don't want people to be panicked, but we do want to take these things seriously and to go through the proper process to report those things.
Even though we're investigating every lead and we're looking into every report, we want to balance that with rights of individuals and not overstepping our bounds and that kind of thing.
And that's what I was getting at too. And just really being vigilant as a community. Sometimes we get a little bit comfortable in Saratoga Springs because it's a very low crime city, and then it can make us a target. And so obviously keeping our eyes open, and I appreciate you taking these things seriously. So, and I hope that this helps with some of the social media because it got a little crazy out there. So thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or?
Nope.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Anything else from staff? Okay, we'll move on. The appointment of the Veterans Advisory Council. This is yours, David, or is Ann here? Okay.
Yeah, so we have another appointment for the Veterans Advisory Council. Daniel Harmuth, is he here tonight? Okay, he's not here. We thought maybe he might be here. Just want to recognize him and all those that are serving on our Veterans Advisory Council. The intent of this is basically so that we can get the input of our veterans and how we're celebrating those things and all that they've contributed to the community. And so, unless you have any other questions, we'll go from there.
I'll entertain a motion.
I just had one question. I am fully supportive of this. I would love if they're comfortable when we have different appointments, just if they're not here, some type of bio or something, just helps us get to know the people that are serving our community. So we just didn't have one in our packet, and it's fine. It's just.
I think that's a great suggestion. We had intent. I thought the individual would be here, but for whatever reason they're not. But I think either way, I'll talk to staff about having those sorts of things. That way you can.
Also, David, I don't know if it's on there yet. I haven't really dug around to find it. But do we have a page set up for our Veterans Advisory Council?
Yeah. Oh, create a page that highlights who's on the council?
Who's on the board, maybe.
Sure, that's a great idea.
There is one. Ann's been working on it.
Does it have their individual bios?
I don't think it has individual bios yet.
I know there is a page, but
one
not.
for Carl as the chair.
Right. So
he was in the.
If that's something you'd like to see, a highlight of the individuals on the advisory council,
I think it's always nice, and especially with the veterans, if they've got questions that they, have, if they can see a face that they recognize, or they know kind of who they're talking to when they're calling to ask questions. I think it's great.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thanks. But for me, if I, and I hope hopefully I don't offend him because I don't believe I know him. But it just helps me put a face, so if I see him out there, we can recognize him in public and stuff like that. So anyway.
Definitely. Okay, thanks.
Perfect, thank you. I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the appointment of Daniel Harmuth to the Veterans Advisory Council, Resolution R18-8, dated today.
Second.
I have a first from Councilman Porter. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilwoman Barch. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, roll call. Podeska. Aye. Wilden.
Aye.
Comber.
Aye.
Barch.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Code Amendment, Title 80112, Delinquency, Discontinuation of Water Service, Ordinance 18-1.
Mayor, Council, while we are coming before you to change one word in the code, it's not a simple, small change.
This changing 60 to 30, what we're requesting is for our shutoffs. Every month we do shutoffs if people haven't paid, and that encourages them to come current with their bills. And so with this change, what we're seeing with more and more people moving into the city, and with the metering that we do on all of our utilities, doing 60 days actually is 90 days that somebody could be delinquent, where if we move to 30, it would be 60 days that they could potentially be delinquent, and it would be more manageable for staff as well as for those account holders who are delinquent to pay the amount that's due rather than a larger sum when they've let it lapse for so long. So other than what was in the staff report, we'll entertain motions. Marquette's here and Chalice, and so if you have any other questions for details, we'd be happy to answer. And
Councilman McComber?
I just think that just for the people here, you ran over it pretty quick because you're like 30, but it really is 60. It's because when you're delinquent, then you still have 30 days till your next bill before then we get turned off. So that's the whole point, is that at 90 days, you could have bills up of $600, and that's much more difficult to come current on than $200 or $300. And so that's the whole purpose. So really, we're not doing this to try and penalize people. We're trying to do this to help people because, and again, sometimes they're not aware that they're even delinquent. Maybe they thought they paid it, they didn't, or whatever. So this will, I think, just help streamline the process and make it more user-friendly for the residents.
And to your point, I failed to mention that the efforts we would take is send notices out to account holders that would fall into this, as well as notify all of our account holders. But also courtesy calls, work with them so that by April, everybody would be current up to the, no more than 30 days delinquent before irrigation season starts. And another thing that Marquette and her staff have done, they work with people when they can to do a promise to pay. So we understand, like, if payday isn't for a week, they'll let people do that on a limited basis. We've had people abuse that. So we've had to limit the number of times account holders can do that, but they do try to work with people, understanding that, it's not a pay now or else. They try to work with people as best they can, but unfortunately we do have those frequent flyers that we deal with on a regular basis. So.
One question, Mayor. Just to double check, to make sure I'm understanding, say someone as of today is 35 days. We're going to wait till April 1st. We'll do our best to, we're not going to shut them off right now because they're over the 30.
Yeah, we would notify them and work with them to get them current. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So for the example, if you're current, you just got your February bill. If you didn't pay by the due date in February, you wouldn't actually be shut off till the first part of April.
From the transition period.
Well, that's just even a normal, that's how it would work with the, yeah. Any other questions we can entertain?
No, just a comment, and I mentioned this earlier today when I was talking with staff, but I would just like to see, a review, and maybe at the end of the irrigation period to see how this actually worked out, so we can see, whether it's doing what we think it's supposed to be doing.
And Marquette's tracking those numbers for us, so we'll be able to provide that for you.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve Code Amendment Title 8.01.12, Ordinance 18-1 dated today.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Wilden. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion on the motion? Porter?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
Comber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have the Consolidated Fee Schedule Amendment, Library Fees and Fines, Resolution R 18-9.
I bring to you a request to update our fines and fees. When we input RFID technologies into each item, it increased the cost of adding each item to the book. The grant funding that was allocated towards that is starting to run out, and as we're replacing books, if patrons are removing those, we'd like to charge them the cost of the removal and remove the used books from the current schedule because we no longer house used books in the library.
Okay. Are there any questions on this?
I apologize, I'm full of it today. I'm full of questions today. I'm full of it too. Can you highlight which rates actually changed? I mean, just looking at them, nothing seems unreasonable, but the challenge is it's just interest. I don't know.
No, that's
I
correct.
trust your judgment, but it's helpful from a governance perspective.
So we
to
broke down
understand.
the processing fees. It previously had the barcode and the lamination fees and spine label fees, but it did not include the RFID technology fee of $2. And that also increased the lost item or damaged item fees from $3 to $5 to cover that RFID technology fee.
Councilwoman Barch?
So I actually had a question on the non-resident card. Why are non-residents that are coming in being charged nothing for a library card when our residents are being charged $1 for a card?
Because of the North Utah County Library bylaws, we utilized their existing card from Eagle Mountain or Lehigh.
So we're not creating a new card for
No,
them?
we're
Okay.
utilizing their account number from that other library and activating that card.
So I'm okay with that. I was just concerned that we were creating a card and not recuperating those costs.
No,
So,
we're
okay.
using what they have from the other library.
No worries then.
Okay. I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve consolidated fee schedule amendment, library fees and fines, resolution R18-9 dated today.
I have a first from Councilman Podeska. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilman Wilden. Any further discussion? Porter?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we have the Intermountain Healthcare IHC Medical Center Community Plan. Who's,
Oh, it's going.
That would be me. Good evening, Mayor and Council. What is before you today is a community plan for Intermountain Healthcare. Oh, this thing works, I bet, huh?
Probably have to turn it on though, too. Turned on the side.
It's not, I'm not sure. Here we go. The location, as you can see on the map, it's just north of some of the University of Utah, where they just received our community plan and village plan. This isn't working, so Dave, you get to do it. Again, it's governed by the city center DAP, 40 acres. I'm going to go real fast here, and then you can ask questions. Go ahead. This is a close-up of it. So there are just a couple issues for discussion. There are, since it's a community plan, they can ask that they have standards built in the community plan that are different than in our development code. And so for development purposes for each piece of the community plan, they would use those standards instead or in addition to the ones in our current Title 19 of our development code. So there's some specific things that they are requesting, and they include a shortening a little bit of the development process, giving staff, planning director some additional approval rights. Setbacks, some reduced setbacks. They were explained in the packet and in the community plan itself. Building height, they are requesting an increased building height. They want to use some different lighting standards that are standard to their facilities that aren't the city standard fixtures. They're a little bit taller. The signs, they're proposing some signs that are larger and taller than otherwise allowed in our code, but are consistent with their facilities. And then they want to be able to use a heliport in the future at some point. This community plan is really looking into the future, and the hope is, and is Tom here yet? Okay, good, excellent. Tom Oriona from IHC can explain it to you. They don't really know what a first phase is going to be or what build out is. They really, their idea is to really grow with the community and provide the services that the community needs now and in the future. And so they're hoping this community plan will look and over the long term and let them provide services as the community grows and demands increase and technology changes and the way people use medical facilities changes, because it has changed a lot over the last few years. So if you have specific questions, I would be happy to address those. Otherwise, I will turn over to Tom.
Okay, if Tom. I'm sure there's a few questions for you.
My name is Tom Uriona. I'm the Corporate Real Estate Director for Intermountain Healthcare, and I am here to answer any questions you might have this evening regarding the community plan that we've presented for consideration.
Councilman Podeska?
I don't have any questions this time.
Okay. Councilman Porter?
I guess this one's actually more for Nora. I missed, I read through this, but I must have missed the changes to the development process, or maybe I'm not, maybe the way you're explaining it is not what I thought it was, but
Dave, do you
what
wanna-
changes are?
This is the development process, and it's straight from their plan. And the biggest change is that there's some of the site plan approval would be by the planning director rather than the planning commission and city council. The site plan approval, this is the third one down.
Oh, okay.
So rather than coming to the planning commission to
I must have missed this
you,
table. Okay.
it would be reviewed by the planning director.
Yeah, if I could just jump in here, without comparing, a lot of these look like they're right out of the crossing as well.
Yeah, they're the same.
Similar.
Okay.
The crossing allows the planning director to approve site plans, because you approve all the standards, and the planning director approves the site, so this would be similar to the crossing.
Okay. And that, I think that process has worked very well. I was just talking with somebody on staff today about the Arby's and the Asian bistro and the mod pizza that went in. It's nice to see them being able to get going without having to constantly come back and see us. So I think I'm having seen that process work well, I'm comfortable with that. As far as the other ones, I don't have a concern with the building height. I realize that sometimes these things get pretty big, so. And as far as the signs, I understand, I think it was pretty close to what we currently allow, isn't that correct? 6 inches? And that's basically just for the base?
Yeah, in terms of the height, some of the lighting methods they're using are not consistent with what we would allow in the code, but they're like every other IHC facility that you see.
And I think that makes sense, because people, I don't see the point in making you go out and redesign your signs for 6 inches. But I also think that as people are looking for a hospital, it's a little comforting to say, they don't even have to read it, they know what that is. So,
Councilman
Yeah.
Porter, if you wouldn't mind, I would like to jump in just on that.
Yeah.
Nor, if I'm not mistaken, I didn't see where the 6 inches was actually called out in the code, other than there was a picture that happened to have 6 inches on one of the images. So I'd like to actually see that called out in code, because we've had all kinds of disagreements of whether a picture is actually code or not. And while I have no idea why in the world you would ever do this, I don't want something down the road to happen, and they say, well, we need a 30-foot base on a 20-foot. It's not going to happen, right? But nonetheless, it would be nice to have that actually called out.
Okay.
So if we can make sure that's actually in the verbiage, that'd be great.
And they could have done taller signs. I mean, they have signs that are taller, but these are the ones that they have proposed for.
I think they're great.
And that's fine. I think, that if there's a sign you want to be visible, it's probably the one for the hospital. And then the heliport, I don't have any issues with that specifically, given this use, so.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So I did have one for staff on this one. So, since you don't know the phasing on the 7 stories of the building potentially there, what is our code in reference to allowing a building beyond what our fire department can handle?
Well, today or a few years from now when they begin construction, or several years from now when they actually go to build a 7-story facility. I mean, it's relative. So when they bring those applications in, clearly we would look at that from a plan review standpoint. And if there were an issue, we would need to address it.
And so we'd have a ladder fire truck by that point?
Our goal is to try and get one, I think, in the next year, but Chief, don't quote me on that.
He reported that.
Okay.
I got a ladder in my garage that we can just strap.
Yeah.
agreement with our neighbors.
Sure. Right now, we have a mutual aid agreement. Besides that, these facilities are sprinkled, so from a fire standpoint, safety, it's things that we would be addressing. But again, this is one of those issues that's kind of unique in that they're getting their entitlements now, and they're presenting you a community plan without knowing what the build out of that facility would look like. If we were to fast forward a number of years, I'd say, there's a lot of campuses that you could look at that would probably be pretty good indications of what this will grow to become. And we welcome that and are excited for that to come into the community. So I believe the request is legitimate based on what we see in the current market today. And then at some point in the future, if they needed to amend that community plan, they could come back for that at that point. But at this point, I think it's anticipating growth. It's certainly, I would love it, Tom, if you could come in and lead with a 7-story building. We'll take that application tomorrow. But the reality is I think it's going to be some time, and I think it's a natural progression for us. I mean, we have several structures in the not too distant future that will start to beg some questions, for heights and things like that. So, we've got at least one other request that we're aware of that's in the pipeline that would be a change to a height. It's not as tall, but it's getting close to that height. So we start to have some really interesting conversations.
So the answer is yes.
Yes.
And I'll make one other comment. Thank you, Mark. You get above 6 stories, costs go up dramatically because of life safety issues. So initially, I don't see this facility starting out any higher than 5 stories. It'll be somewhere between 3 and 5 stories, just because of that issue alone. It's just that 30 or 40 years from now, who knows what we may need to do to provide adequate services for the community. That's what we're trying to address now, so that there's no, we're not trying to hide anything. We just want to be able to serve the needs of the community as it grows.
Just following up kind of what you said. So you're envisioning phase 1 to be 3 to 5 stories, ish. And then it's primarily the first phase is primarily ambulatory services, outpatient services.
Well, that's a good question, and Nora touched on this issue. And I'll give you an example. We are just in the process of completing what will be probably a similar facility to what we might do here in Layton. And as it turned out, that facility is 5 stories. And there was a lot of hand-wringing as to whether we would actually have any true inpatient beds in that facility. If you look at the number of inpatient beds in the state as a whole, whether it's when you add up Intermountain's capacity, IASIS, University of Utah, HCA, Morningstar, the state has plenty of inpatient capability. In fact, we probably have more than we need. So when you say ambulatory, it will have outpatient surgery, imaging, an ED, emergency department, diagnostic and treatment on an outpatient basis. We'll probably have some what we'd call 24 to 48 hour stay beds, and there'll probably be some beds that will provide adequate service for birthing, etc. Whether we have true inpatient beds will remain to be seen, because by the time we build the facility, technology may be such that we won't need to, and we'll have plenty of capacity elsewhere for those needs for the community.
That's fine. It's just, for myself and for those in the community, we see medical center, but, that can mean a lot of different things. We also have a U of U medical center, which is basically just doctor's offices.
Right.
So,
right.
So I appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Councilman Wilden?
I don't have any concerns with the 6 inches. That's the same height as Councilwoman Barch's heels. I don't see a problem with that. As far as correct me if I'm wrong, setbacks, they're requesting, are those setbacks requests, is that consistent with other areas within the zone? I'm not saying I'm concerned with it, I just want to make sure that I understand.
In most cases, they're actually larger, and they have sort of a, Dave, if you want to, Go back, I think, or maybe forward. Go forward. Maybe?
Did I miss it? No, there we go, yep.
So the front is shown as the landscape buffer sections, which were in the slide previously. Sides are 20 and rear is 20. They're consistent with most of the zones that we have in the city.
Okay, that's helpful. And then just maybe kind of a footnote, it would help my review, at least for me individually, is if they're asking for different setbacks, that's maybe different, whatever. I can't think of the appropriate word, just saying this is consistent
comparison.
or something like that.
Okay.
So basically, I'm fine with that. So that's all I had.
Okay, Councilwoman Barch.
So I have a few concerns. In general, I don't have a problem with the signs. I have some questions on the lighting. So, Nora, what did we approve? I know there's been some discussion of whether or not we do champagne or black on the lighting. What did we approve on the U of U? Because I know that there was comment brought up that we should be doing champagne because it would match the crossing. But I don't think we did champagne on the U of U, so I don't think that we necessarily need to make that uniform all the way across.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I don't think the U of U use champagne. I think the crossing does.
Yeah,
but this is,
does.
And this is not part of the crossing.
Right.
And there may have been some confusion about that. I know it's, it's a little bit further away.
Well, and that was my comment, is if it were right next to the crossing, I could
Right.
see maybe wanting to continue that, but where the U of U is in between, and we're going to have, large roads in between as well, I'm not as concerned with it. It does make it disappear a little bit more, but I'm not as concerned. My bigger concern, and this is just because I am not knowledgeable in this area, with the height of the lights coming in and the helipad, I mean, I assume that you've got clearances and everything else that you're used to doing.
Yeah, we have to meet FAA standards relative to where the helipad's placed and obstacles that may be in its way, so.
Yeah.
And then there are certain lighting requirements for the helipad itself.
Right.
So,
And do those helipad lights, are those the ones that are triggered as they're coming in?
yes.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, they're not on all the time.
Awesome. My only other question on lighting is with shielding. So one of the concerns that I have is, and we see this with the crossing where they've got the taller lights, they're not shielded as well as some of the other lights that we have within the city, and they are absolutely blinding as you're driving by on the other roads. And I'm not sure on this particular exhibit that we have in our packet, but it appears to have very, very flat with the LEDs right on the surface. And if that's the case, those are even worse than the ones that are at the crossing. Planning Commissioner Steele and I, when the crossing came in, went on a little field trip of our own, and we were originally very opposed, as you'll remember, to having those taller lights. But we looked at what they had at the district, which is what they were using as their example, and they were okay. Right across Bangor from the district is where the Sprouts is at, and it has horrific lights, and it has really flat, and the LEDs are right there next to it, and that appears to be what's in here. So I want to make sure we're for sure not using those lights, that they're shielded, and maybe even a little bit better shielded than IHC, so it's not blinding the drivers on Pioneer Crossing as they're driving by, since it will be slightly above in
That's
a
what
lot
I'm
of
saying,
areas.
that's the thing, is because it's higher than.
It's the elevation, yeah. So the district, it's really easy because the district is dropped down
Down
below
below
Bangor,
Bangor,
and so it's not problematic. So that's my concern there on those, just to make sure we have plenty of shielding on that lighting. On the buffering along Pioneer Crossing, I have a couple of questions on this. Is the sidewalk area along Pioneer Crossing actually within your property, or is it within the UDOT property?
I'd have to go look at the survey. I honestly can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, fair
I
enough.
wouldn't want to say without looking at that
So
survey.
my concern is that they're being given open space, you're being given open space credit for this area. If UDOT's already purchased this land, it shouldn't be counted as open space credit, in my personal opinion. I don't think that that should be counted.
I think we'd have to, our open space would be set by our property line, regardless of where it is.
Okay. So along those lines, my understanding is you're going to be maintaining that area in there. I actually have pretty great concern that you have listed nothing but rock from the edge of Pioneer up to the sidewalk. No trees, no shrubs, no greenery or anything. And that's very concerning because you end up with huge, this crazy heat island. There's no mitigation of the heat coming off of Pioneer Crossing. There's no mitigation of the heat coming off of the sidewalks. Makes it very uncomfortable to walk on those sidewalks. And that's supposed to be one of our, part of our regional trail system. So I think that there needs to be landscaping added to the other side, especially where it's the south side of the sidewalk, and that's where the shade's going to come from for the most part, in the west and south side. And that's where you're going to get the shade as the residents are walking along that sidewalk. So I would prefer to see some trees in there. You could do, some Carl Forster grasses or, whatever's going to pop up easily and not be hard to maintain, because I understand that there's a maintenance issue also where you don't want to have high
Yeah,
maintenance.
if it's UDOT right away, I don't know that we can touch it. If it's our property, we can look at that.
So, Nora, do you know how that works?
I don't know specifically where the property line lies, but Dave might.
Yeah, right now, looking at the map, the existing trail is within the SLR or would be IHC property.
Okay.
So property line is just off the edge of oil, basically.
Okay. So we definitely want to make sure we've got some trees and some shrubs in there. And I don't know if the rest of council is on board for that or not, but as far as setbacks, I'm fine with the setbacks. Again, on the open space, there's a comment that there was a maximum percentage of open space, which seems problematic because you're not going to come in with your full facility all at once. So at some point, you are going to have too much open space, and a maximum on open space isn't something that I'd like to see anyway. I'd rather have it, if they wanted to do more open space, why shouldn't they be able to do more open space? So I'm not quite sure how to handle that, because I know that your water is tied to your acres of irrigable acres. So I'm not sure how that is, but since I know they're not going to come in at their full build out, they're going to be over the maximum.
Yes.
So that seems problematic to me.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at the exact wording to see what it says. I think the assumption is that because it's been being done in phases, it will be, at some points, they will be over the maximum.
Yeah.
I think that's assumed. But we could make a clarifying statement about that, ask them if you want to add a condition that says that it'll be clarified that there may be additional open space beyond the maximum that's indicated.
It's so funny that we have maximum to allow more open space.
I know, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, Dave?
If I could, just to go back to your question about lighting, you were asking about the U of U. Just real briefly, they talk about the public lighting along the streets will meet the Saratoga Springs City standards. Public lighting for public and private thoroughfares internal to the village plan will comply with state statute and are set forth in Title 10 of the Utah Municipal Code. I don't know what that references, Kevin may. And then the aesthetic style of light fixtures within the University of Utah Medical Center Village Plan will be consistent with the style of fixtures used on similar university facilities. And it doesn't give a picture of what that is.
Okay. So again, I don't have a problem with, if it's not Champaign, I don't necessarily have a problem with it because I don't think that it's right next to the crossing. I don't think it's going to be problematic, so.
And there's a note in the community plan that talks about night sky, dark sky compliance.
Good. Although it's a hospital 24 hours, so. Well.
Right. But that means that the fixtures would have full cutoff.
Right. Okay, very good. Also, a couple of items of discord within the community plan. Under B, community plan character, under 1, Section 1, landscaping guidelines, Section 2, decorative stone, accent boulders, and edgings. So number 2 says, landscape concrete curbing or commercial grade steel edging shall be used to separate different size and color of decorative stones, but is not required. You can't be shall be used and not required at the same time. So we just need to clean that up. And then, yeah, I think that's pretty standard that we use that, isn't it, Nora? So we just need to remove the but is not required probably. And then also on that same section, number 4, lawn and shrub planters shall be separated by a landscape curb. One of the concerns that I have, which when we're talking about the diameter, in all of those items, there's not ever a percentage of plant coverage in the rock area. So all of these areas, even though they're showing pictures with trees and shrubs and everything else, it could be all 100% rock. And we've never allowed that anyplace else in the city. So I'd like to go back to what our normal city standards are as far as they have to have, is it 30% coverage of their area?
Okay, you can say 30.
What?
Only in park strips?
I was pretty sure that whenever they had rock period, that they couldn't have, that they had to have coverage. Is that not the case? I could be mistaken on that. So anyway, just want to make I just want to make sure that we've got shrubbery and trees to cover that, so we're not going to end up with straight rock and end up feeling like Arizona when we're not Arizona.
So yeah, just make sure it meets the requirements in Title 19.
Yeah, and I don't foresee you planning on doing that. Your facilities are usually pretty
If you look at any other facility we've developed, it's not a sea of rock.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not. But we always have to plan for what if.
Of course, the way this winter's going, we may not have any water to water vegetation, so you may want to change your code at some point, but that's another story.
So my last area of concern, and the same thing goes for the trees in the islands, and I think that you had already mentioned that, hadn't you, Nora, in your packet, in your staff recommendations?
I'm not sure if I did in this one.
So that would be under parking islands landscaping? It doesn't specifically call out trees. It says deciduous and evergreen shrubs, but it doesn't call out trees. And again, that's one of those things where we try to have that canopy cover some of that parking lot area, so we need to add trees into that.
They also will have to give us additional information when we get to the site plan stage.
Yeah.
So these are, intended to be.
But we won't be having any oversight on the site plan phase. You will.
That's right.
So we have to get it in now.
Got it.
Yes, exactly. So then my last area of concern, and this is one that we've talked about with several developments in this area, is there's an existing canal that is there. You're talking about covering it if the canal company allows it. However, I'm not seeing a trail through that area, or I'm not seeing how that fits into the site.
Yeah, I asked specifically, because the latest version of the community plan looks a little bit different than the last version in terms of that trail.
Yeah.
And they are proposing to put that trail either over or adjacent to the canal. We've told them they have to cover the canal if the canal company allows it, and they're willing to do that. And then there's also a tie-in to the underpass.
I was going to see how that worked. I don't quite understand. I saw the little C shape, but I don't.
Right, that's what that is.
And what we'd like to do is, when we actually come in with a village plan, site plan, is address that issue, because if we do culvert the canal, if it's allowed, we want to maximize the usable area. We could use that for parking, and then we would still put the trail in. It may go a little further to the northwest, up into the apex a little bit, but then it would connect with the underground trail.
So one of my concerns is because we can now bury, because staff has decided this is a brilliant idea, which I've always been opposed to, just so you're aware. But because of this, everybody's like, well, we'll just move the trail. But what that does is, instead of having this nice trail that comes through that's not along roadways that people can recreate on and travel to work on, all of a sudden it's against the road, against the road, against the road, and it completely changes the character of what its purpose and intent was.
No, and we understand that, but what we want to try and do is balance that with utilization of the site. And again, if the canal is going to be covered, we can utilize that for parking. I think we're not going to push it all the way up and then have it come back down. And it may be incorporated into whatever landscaping we do in that apex area. But again, if the canal is going to be covered, we ought to be able to access and use that land area appropriately, and I think we can do both.
See, and this is one of the reasons, staff, why I said this is a bad idea to cover all these canals, because I understand you wanting to maximize your parking and all of that, but again, it sounds to me like you're still wanting to shove it up against the road and to make it not a nice trail, continuous trail. So
no, I don't think.
Well, and again, there's no site plan, so I can't really say.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at where that canal is in relation to that apex, it would be very awkward to shove it up and then bring it back. I mean, someone could bring that up.
That one.
Yeah, we'll just, we'll still have it in that general area, but we can maximize that canal area for parking, if it's going to have to be covered, then we'd have the trail next to that parking and landscaped area.
Okay. I think those are all of my concerns and comments.
Okay, Councilman McComber.
I appreciate the other council members. I think they've covered, I think I've checked off all of mine, but I do have sort of a general concern. Just want to bring this out, and this is something that is beyond your project in itself, but it's the whole district area plan that's starting to concern me. Is the whole purpose of the district area plan was to have 3,000 acres. That was this big vision, a master plan vision. And what I'm getting now are little teeny projects that are leveraging the allowances of the district area plan without any of the benefit. And so this is really starting to concern me, and so I'm sort of looking at the people who are responsible for the bigger picture. We really need to look at that and come back and have some more conversations. One of the advantages of being on the council as long as I have, some people are against it, some people are for the idea, is I've been here since the beginning. Since the very first conversations about what this whole area was going to look like. And so this isn't really directed at you. You're doing what you need to do. So like, for example, the whole lighting fiasco that caused so much drama at Planning Commission. If we really had the district area plan and this master planning community, we wouldn't have had that conversation. Because it would have said, we're going to do Champaign in our regional commercial areas, and in our business park, we're going to go ahead, IHC needs this, so we're going to go ahead and just do the black and this whole area, and we have this road to divide those two. We would have that conversation, and we would have that continuity. This goes beyond just like we have a development in the southern part of the acreage. There was no conversation of how that flows into the surrounding area. What was the whole purpose of the district area plan was to do that. And so, as more of these community plans are coming in, I am concerned that legally they're not under the district area plan. And so I want to be looking into that a little bit more. And Kevin, I would ask if you could help me from a legal perspective. Are they really meeting the obligations of that district area plan, or are they really now just under R19 all in itself because they're these small 20-acre developments? I don't see any value I'm getting out of the 3,000 acres. With that being said, now this project, slightly moving the canal, I think that one thing at hospitals, it's nice to have a place to even go and walk, and making it with trees and things when you need a little break. Recently I had the opportunity, unfortunately, to be in a hospital for an emergency room with my mom, and I needed a place and there wasn't a place because of the hospital. It was one of your hospitals, but it's just how things grew up around it. There just really wasn't this opportunity. You've been given a great gift here in a way to force your hand a little bit to have a nice trail, something to walk, even a bench or two wouldn't be a bad idea.
I appreciate that, and I think you'll see that.
Yeah, and because I know that's what I would have liked to be able to go and just sort of gain some composure. And so really you have a blessing. So if you're slightly shifting it so you can get 10 more stalls, I'm okay with that. In terms of the setbacks, again, I'm okay with that because it's consistent. And I think what Councilman Wilden was really getting at is, in the future for staff, if it meets code, say it meets code with the, sort of now I'm almost backing up to the district area plan. But my concern is it really meeting that? But right now, under what I'm being told is that, yes, that 20-foot setback is perfectly fine because it's not asking for a variance or anything like that. So that would help me when I'm making a decision on this is a variance versus just they're asking for this.
Right.
And then in terms of the height, I'm okay with that as well. I would say that I support, because you did go forth with the landscaping, I know that you will, but I just think having that in there so that we have the foliage over the rocks, even though I've never seen that not happen at a IHC facility. So again, it's just, so we're consistent with all developers and we're not treating one differently than another. And welcome, thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, to your point, It's DRC meeting on Monday. We talked about your very concern about having all these little community plans and village plans come in. That's not really what they are. They're really just site plans. And so I think that I totally agree with you that we need to figure out how to make that whole idea of the district area plan work with what's happening now. And, you know, we talked about maybe making the minimum size for a community plan much larger, or, you know, that there be some framework before a community plan can be done. But we agree that what's happening is we're getting all these little piecemeal things, and it's not relating to anything else
It's
or anything.
defeating the whole vision and purpose of the ditch area plan. And Mayor, if it's okay, I would volunteer to even be a part of that conversation, just so that we have that voice of the council in there as we meet with the landowner as well as the city, just to have positive conversations. I'm not trying to be negative here. I'm trying to get us back to that big vision of creating the opportunity to have a master plan community at a city level, almost. I mean, that's how much acreage that we're talking about here, and truly make something great that flows and has all this great connectivity, and the buildings even flow and naturally progress into different, I mean, all of these things we talked about for months and months when we did charrettes and all these different meetings. So I personally would be willing. I have the flexibility in my schedule to meet at different times to make that possible, but it's up to the mayor if that's okay. But that's all for me. And again, welcome, and looking forward to your product. The pictures, I feel bad because you didn't really share much of the pictures in the slideshow for the people in the audience. I think the buildings, the concepts that you've done are just very sharp. Like some of these buildings here, I think that it's going to look, I mean, I personally like that one. If you go back a little bit, I'll just say that to me is representative of Saratoga Springs. So thank you.
Okay. Tom, thank you. Kind of along the lines Michael's talking about, I know this kind of got broken up, but I see this piece kind of as an epicenter to start the master plan. We constantly get asked for years, when do the restaurants come? When does this come? When does this come? I mean, similar to University of Utah, I don't know how many jobs you anticipate this would have, but I know they threw out like $15 million a year in annual salaries, 200 and something jobs. Those are your lunch crowds that bring the restaurants the residents want. So this, as a piece or a toe of the master plan, I think is great. This is something we need, not just for the hospital. This is just something for a business. So I mean, that really has nothing to do with IHC, but I think that this is a great piece, and you've been very patient to listen, and let us know if you have any questions of us.
I don't. I will say that we are excited to be a part of this community and look forward to that. When I say we, Intermountain Healthcare. I want to thank you for your patience as we've gone through this process, and your comments are great, and they will be taken to heart. So I want to thank you, Mayor and council members, for that. And then I want to thank your staff, Mark and Kevin and Dave and Gordon and Nora have been great to work with. They are pragmatic but reasonable, and that's great, and we appreciate that and have appreciated their help as we've gone through this process. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's great feedback. Thank you.
Okay.
Your motion?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the Intermountain Healthcare Community Plan with the findings and conditions below. Staff findings and conditions, adding that we verify the shielding on the lights, that we clarify the change on section 7B1 under decorative stone number 2, removing but if not required, change the wording on the secondary water to be consistent, clarify additional open space beyond max is okay throughout the building process, and then also add the additional 6-inch base to the monument verbiage, and to make sure that the trees and shrubs in the park strips and the trees in the parking islands are consistent with our city code.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have first from Councilwoman Barch and a second from Councilwoman McComber. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, roll call. Councilman Podeska?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, kind of a time check with the council as we move into the last half of this session. We still have our goal planning, so staff has direction for the upcoming year as to what residents have given us feedback for. Okay, Mallard Bay, Phase 2.
Mallard Bay Phase 2 is a request for an extension of the final plat. Our planner, Jeff Adderman, was assigned to this. He is sick today, so I will fill in for him. The location here you see in the blue, you see Mallard Bay Phase 1 is already there and platted along Redwood Road. Basically what the applicant is asking for is when a development is approved in phases, from the moment that the latest plat is recorded, the next phase has 2 years to record. So Phase 1 is recorded on April 1st, 2016, so the next deadline for Phase 2 is April 1st, 2018. So the applicant is requesting an extension up to 12 months is what the council can approve. They feel they can get it in before that deadline, but should any unforeseen circumstances come up, they want to be able to have that leeway to go beyond that April 1st date. Nothing else changes on the plat. They're strictly just asking for.
I appreciate the forward thinking rather than the rush right before the deadline.
There was changes on fencing, if I remember right, in the one area on Phase 1.
On fencing? Okay. I'm not familiar with that. Okay. Oh, yeah, well, let me just, as far as the phasing goes, there's the plat. As far as the phasing goes, where you see things in the red, they just shifted a few lots around from one phase to the other. No, obviously it's not substantial, but that was a change as far as the phasing goes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
If I can make a couple comments, sorry, Mayor. Two things. So one of the changes they're making is on Phase 1 on that upper detention basin. They're changing that, which I really appreciate, from native grass in the middle to all regular grass. So I think that that's a phenomenal change. And then they're also asking that the fences along that open space area be, instead of split rail, they're asking for a 4-foot semi-private fence instead, which still allows for the view corridor and yet allows for them to be able to contain their dogs and kids, basically, is what it is. So my only thing that I would add is I would like to see, along with that change of fencing, on the pedestrian areas in between the blocks. Right now they're doing 3-foot, the split rail, the 2-rail fence in those areas. And I would like to see the same 4-foot semi-private be in at least the backyards of those areas as well, again, to contain the kids and the dogs. It still gives the open feel, it still gives the privacy to the residents, and yet it creates a consistency throughout the neighborhood. Yeah. So I would actually like to change that.
That was at least in the backyard, you said?
Yeah, at least in the backyard. So, and I know you don't always want that 4-foot in the front yard. I don't know if the applicant's here, Dave, or not.
Mallard Bay.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for...
Is it on?
I don't know.
It is? Okay, good.
For hearing our request for final plat extension. So I am Jack Hepworth. I am with Century Communities. I'm glad to be here. So your question or comment?
Yes, on the fencing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I would just like to see where you're doing that 4-foot semi-private fencing along that open space. You're changing it to that instead of the 2-rail fence. I think it would be phenomenal for those residents if along the trail corridors through the mid-block areas,
yes,
if you did the same thing on at least the backyard sections, so that they were able to contain their kids and dogs as well, and still have the openness for the little trail area, but allow for them to have a little bit more.
So on the rear property line of those lots where we have mid-block access to the lake?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
both sides of that, the ones that are contiguous to it on both sides?
Exactly,
Sure.
yeah. That would give them a better product, which I know you want to give to your residents, and it would also still leave that open feel space.
Sure, no, that'd be fine.
Open space feel, there we go, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Be
Sure.
great, thanks.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Want to do it?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll move that we approve Mallard Bay Phase 1 final plat. Sorry, is it written wrong in our staff report?
No, it's Phase 2.
It's written in our staff report, it's written wrong?
Yeah.
Okay, let's try this again. I move that we approve Phase 2 final plat extension request, Jack Hepworth applicant, 3000 South Redwood Road, including all staff findings and conditions, adding that the fences along the mid-block trails be the 4-foot semi-private in the backyards where possible.
Yeah, I have a first from Councilwoman Barch. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion on the motion? Podeska?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you very much.
The point is Saratoga Springs rezone and concept plan from NC and A to CC. That sounded exciting.
Okay, great. This is the land use map. So the request is consistent with our land use map. And then what you're seeing here is the site with 3 buildings shown on it. There's room for an additional building. And then there is some area to the north of the site that should also be incorporated into the site, which will allow for a few minor changes. And they're a little bit short on landscaping, so that will also allow for enough landscaping. One thing that you're seeing here towards the, I don't know, how does, towards the west, but towards the front of the buildings, you kind of see an area that isn't included in the plan. So it's circled here in this aerial. That's currently owned by the city. It was dedicated with a former plat. What staff has brainstormed is having them take that over in exchange for long-term maintenance. Then the city wouldn't have to maintain that landscape and trail area, and then the applicant would be responsible for that. And that would require approval by the city council, and we could bring that back at a future date if that's something the council supports. And then these are the proposed elevations. There are several recommendations related to the concept plan included in the report and up on the screen here. And then concept is an informal review, so they're looking for feedback on the concept plan. And then there's a recommended motion for approval of the zone change.
Okay. Councilwoman Barch.
Thanks, Mayor. So I have absolutely no problem with the zone change. I think that's totally fine. On the concept plan, overall, I don't have a problem with it. Definitely, I think that we should make sure that that maintenance happens on that front parcel. And if that is that typically what we've done, is deeded that over to them in return for that maintenance?
That's what we recently did in front of Sergeant Court commercial area.
Okay, very good. So I have no problem with that. I think that also solves several other problems here. So after the applicant includes the northern parcels in their plan, there are a couple of connectivity issues that I see here, pedestrian connectivity specifically. So just for a little bit of history, and again, one of the benefits of being on council for a long time and having been involved with the city for a very long time, on the north end, Jordan Ridge Boulevard was originally supposed to come all the way across and connect in as a collector road to Redwood Road. And that has since changed. However, that also completely blocks off all the pedestrian access for all of those condominiums back there. So what I would propose is that we need to maintain that connectivity, and if on that north end they continue a trail, sidewalk, whatever it is, along through that open space, counts as part of their open space as well, but up from Jordan Ridge Boulevard where that sidewalk ends right now and continued out to Redwood Road, because right now what's going to happen is people coming from the condominiums are going to have to then walk in the parking lot, through the parking lot to get to Redwood Road, and that's a safety issue.
There's a sidewalk that's going to dead end.
There's a sidewalk that's going to dead end, and then you're going to have to walk into the parking lot, which doesn't make any sense.
That's great feedback. The city does have a trail easement, and we've asked them to include that on their resubmittal.
Good, perfect. And then along with that, with the north part coming in, and then with that western piece coming into them as part of their facility, there's also no connectivity from, especially for the southern building without a drive-through, there's no pedestrian connectivity if you're coming from the north, really to get to that building very easily from the sidewalk. And it would make sense, you could actually put 2 sidewalks in here pretty easily, one directly from the Redwood Road sidewalk to the front, back, whatever you want to call it, of the southern building, straight there, and have an entrance to that facility from that side without having to go all the way around the building. Because you could even, and then for the other access, what I can envision is if you actually take and spread those buildings out slightly, which I think that there are also some issues with how much landscaping they have around their buildings, if I'm not mistaken, as far as following code, and that's something that we'll address later. But you could actually spread those buildings out just slightly, and that would actually leave an access point between the 2 drive-through areas where you could actually put a trail then, sidewalk, from the Redwood Road sidewalk all the way up to the front sidewalks in front of the building, and you'd have that pedestrian connectivity. So you could very easily just kind of spread it out, and that would allow for that access in all of those areas and allow for a lot more pedestrian safety. So those are my only comments. And then, of course, I assume silly little things like the fact that the elevations don't match the site plans on their orientation will be fixed as it comes forward. So not a big deal. That's all I have.
Must be, you mentioned it.
Well, it doesn't matter. It will be a big deal. It's not exactly.
So, Okay, Councilman Porter.
No, I like the idea of allowing for some pedestrian connectivity across the northern portion. As far as and forgive me if I'm totally off base, and I'm sure you'll explain to me why this is the case, but generally with the rezone, doesn't that require a public hearing? Is there a reason why this one doesn't?
Well, we have reevaluated that, and state law has no longer required that, except for with the Planning Commission on rezones.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure we're checking all of our boxes, but
yeah, that
sounds
was,
like you guys got
a code amendment about a year ago, year and a half ago.
Must have just missed it. All right, but yeah, I think that the zone change makes absolute sense, and I look forward to seeing something besides weeds in this property. So.
And to have the sidewalk finished.
Yeah, and to have the sidewalk finished, it'll be great. So.
Councilman McComber.
I'm glad you caught that trail. It sounds like you were already on top of that, so I appreciate that. And then I would add to Councilman Barch's point, some kind of access from Redwood Road in the middle of the project would be great as they're working through that. If you can help them, just what would work in terms of access. And I sort of like the idea of pulling those two buildings down and giving that space. It just makes sense. And if I'm not mistaken, where that is on Redwood Road, it actually isn't that steep there. So where some parts of Redwood Road and the buildings, you're like up at like 20 steps practically sometimes, but this one's not that case, so it would work. But great, thank you.
Yeah, Councilman Wilden.
No concerns on the rezone, and I'm supportive of the comments of enhancing pedestrian access. I shouldn't have handed out my notes to the rest of the council before we got here, otherwise I'd have more to talk about. So.
Okay, I'll let you go first next. Okay, Councilman Podeska.
Yeah, I'm supportive of the rezone, and those are my comments as well with the pedestrian access, seeing that from the Planning Commission notes as well. So, yeah, supportive of that. That's all.
Yeah. The applicant want to add anything before entertain a motion? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the point at Saratoga Springs rezone and concept plan from neighborhood commercial and agriculture to community commercial. Ordinance 18-2 dated today.
I have a first from Councilman Porter. I have a second from Councilwoman Barch.
Kevin, I have a point of clarification. We don't really approve concept plans. Do we need to amend the motion, or is it okay? Because he said rezone and concept plan for the motion. Is it okay?
Yeah, just strike the concept plan portion of it.
Change my motion to strike the word concept plan.
I'll accept that.
Okay, I have an amended first and second.
Good catch.
Well, any other comments? Okay, Podeska.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Barch.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
I've done it before.
Next on the agenda is the Pirelli Meadows preliminary plat. Scott Carlson, Larry Jacobson, Silver Sage. This is the new piece that just came into Saratoga Springs. Welcome. It was a long-fought battle. We're happy to have you here.
Okay,
Continue, the council's forgotten the fight.
You have all seen this before a number of times. This slide just gives you context of where the parcel is in relation to the really colorful thing was a concept plan for McLaughlin, which is actually now being called North Shores. And then on the right is the little Webb Lakeview annexation, and they've actually chosen to annex into Lehigh. So the piece in the middle is the Pirelli annexation, and the preliminary plat is consistent with their concept plan. There are a few little changes that resulted, particularly out of the interlocal agreement that we entered into with Lehigh about where our annexation boundary should be, our annexation declaration boundaries should be, which will hopefully simplify these processes in the future, so that's all good. Dave, you want to go ahead? So there are two developed park areas. They're providing some really great open space amenities, pavilions, picnic tables, a paved trail along the creek, and a bridge over the creek connecting the two pieces of the subdivision, which I think is fabulous. They're So we're really excited about the open space amenities. Go ahead. This is just a table that is in your staff report that talks about the specifics of the subdivision. The next slide, there are a couple questions that have come up, and they came up for me too when I was reviewing this, especially on the one that's kind of in the middle of the subdivision. It's a weird little lot that is actually shown as is ending up with Lehigh. Right now it is annexed into the city of Saratoga Springs, but along with the lots along Evans Street, those will be annexed into Lehigh.
So this one lot, it won't be annexed from, or it won't be accessed from Evans. If you look at where the border is, it cannot have a driveway onto Evans. It'll be a driveway onto, what are we calling it, Hopkins. It's physically impossible to get a driveway going east-west on that piece of property onto Evans. Because it's past the curvature. It's past the midpoint of the curvature.
Well, it'll be off that road. Saying, I might, when we had talked about it with, when we talked about the boundaries and what shall go where,
Yeah.
that was included in the portion to go to
So
Lehigh.
if you look at their addressing, there's no way the post office is going to approve that on Evans. That's just not how they work.
Okay.
Which means it's going to cause the exact same problems that we were trying to prevent by having those homes go to Lehigh.
Okay, I will let these folks and Mark talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
And then the other parcel that I know there was some question of is the other clouded parcel. And that parcel was actually not included in the annexation, and they intend to annex into Lehigh.
Okay. Again, they're going to annex into Lehigh, but they're accessing off of Saratoga roads.
I'll correct that.
Okay.
The home is annexed in Saratoga.
Okay.
The parcel to the east of the home will be part of the Lehigh annexation.
So all of those lots then will access off of Evans Street and not off of Moorhead?
Which lots are you pointing to?
The ones in the eastern parcel that will eventually come to pass.
So Scott, basically what she's saying is the home is there's gonna be a division of that lot, and then the remaining lots to the east of the home will go to Lehigh, and they'll be accessed off Evans Lane.
Evans Lane.
Okay, then I don't have a problem with that. That makes sense.
Home is the Saratoga home.
So is Hopkins Lane never going to go all the way through? It's going to dead end?
That's the end of it.
Okay, okay,
Moorhead, you mean?
okay, that's fine. That's great. Don't have a problem with that then.
Hopkins is the road that connects to Evans.
Yes.
But Moorhead
dead ends though.
Moorhead dead ends provide access to the home.
Perfect.
Okay. Do you have more, Nora?
No, unless you have specific questions.
Okay. Councilman Porter?
I had one more item, and that's just on Lot 66. This is an R1 9,000, so they should be 9,000 square foot lots, which they are. They're great lots. Lot 66, however, because it's a corner lot, needs to be 10% bigger, and it's not quite there, so that just needs to be a little bit of adjustment done.
So Lot 66 is not a corner lot.
How is it not a corner lot? It's on Old Saratoga Road, and...
It's not. Parcel B is the open space parcel for
stand
detention.
corrected. Okay, no worries. Thanks, Scott. All good.
A good catch, otherwise.
Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
Councilman McComber, you're good? Vedeska, Wilden? Okay, I'll enter.
Lots have already been addressed, so.
Okay. We will put this horse to rest and entertain a motion.
I move that we approve Pirelli Meadows preliminary plat, Scott Carlson and Larry Jacobson, Silver Sage financial applicant.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a first from Councilwoman Barch and a second from Councilman McComber. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, I will do a roll call. Porter?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Vedeska?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, Saratoga Springs Middle School Village Plan and Community Plan.
If you don't know already, Saratoga Springs is in need of more schools, and Alpine School District is here to build one.
We've heard that rumor.
And so they'd like to build the middle school there, Tanner Lane, Redwood Road. The property you see there in the blue, this is in the PC zone. So again, it does have to come through with the CP and VP plan, which they have submitted. Going to earlier comments, again, this falls under what Councilman McComber was saying about the plan, but of course, this is also the state. So there's some leeway with the state. Doesn't have to follow. Yeah, it doesn't have to follow with what our requirements.
I love the fact they flipped that, so we have open space against Redwood Road rather than townhomes. Thank you to the school district.
And
if you guys want to come up and have a seat.
If I could, I want to make one point. Typically, when we receive an application from the school district, you get site plan approval only. But because of the community plan and the village plan, in this case, you've had a lot more ability to see the workings and what their application is. So in this case, although it's counter to what you were saying earlier, it actually allows us to have much more vision of what's actually going to be taking place.
But my argument isn't the fact that the school's not a thing, it's what's going around the school. How is it going to phase and connect the flow?
So that's actually one of the challenges that we had to look at as a design team. We had to look at drainages and storm drain and sewer and all these other things. And so it did create somewhat of an issue relative to this that we had to take a step back and say, okay, where are you going to put your sewer? Where are you going to do your utility?
The landowners left, but you're working with them.
Right, we are working with them on that concept, but we did have to put a lot of gray matter into what's going to happen around it and how are we ensuring that the utilities and things are in place. And so we appreciate the school district. They've done a great job with LAI on working with us on these particular issues, so thank you.
And just on the screen, here's highlight a few of these. Probably a big thing, it's a 186,000 square foot facility, 2 stories, substantial. That will total about 86 ERUs within the DAP. There will be some trail improvements along Redwood Road. 309 off-street parking stalls, those types of things. They are willing to comply with our signage requirements. They'd like to keep some signage similar to the other facilities they have. And then here's a rendition of the elevation. And kind of a basic plan here, shows you the site of the school, the play fields, the track. The lighter green you see along Redwood Road will be along with the trail there. They will maintain that as well. So this just gives you a general idea, and then the landscape plan you see there on the right.
I like your different green grasses as you go through your development.
You're going to water the field a little bit.
Yeah, and radioactive the trail.
Again, having the open space next to
The open space is great. So, do you guys have anything you want to add? I mean, we're excited. We know the school's bursting at the seams. The biggest question, we'll just get it out before the council is waiting. When do you guys plan on breaking ground?
And what do you
Yeah.
We'd like to break ground as soon as we can. We're ready to.
Tomorrow
just
morning?
Yeah.
Wilden
that would be great.
has a Tonka backhoe. He'd be happy to help dig.
Yeah.
the fall of 19?
Yeah, we're anticipating open this the fall of 19.
Wow.
And as of right now, we're actually,
Fast turnaround for junior high.
Yeah, 18-month build.
we are reviewing the site plan and the plat, which they spent the plat last week. We're reviewing those together right now.
The transportation and access better than Vista.
A lot better than Vista.
So with the road to the north, as that goes in, how soon till there's a light there? Because I know there's some concerns with the construction trucks trying to drive through the neighborhood to get to the light to get out on Redwood.
Turn that over to Gordon.
Well, UDOT's policy is to install lights when they're warranted, but we all know as soon as this thing opens, it's going to be warranted.
We suspect that when it opens, it will require that warrant study. But we would, certainly prefer that the construction traffic come off of Tanner Lane or the extension of what's the name of that street? Parkway, yeah, rather than going up through Grandview Boulevard. So we understand that concern, and I think we can work with the school district on directing traffic appropriately.
My thought is just if they're building that road and it's tore up, can we get UDOT involved?
Well, UDOT has been involved. So kind of a bigger picture.
Podesta said he would jump on the meter counter all day.
Yeah, so what UDOT's involvement has been as well is they were supposed to build a temporary detention basin for storm drain kind of on the south east corner of where that field is. And because the school is now going in, we're in the process of relocating that detention basin on the opposite side of Parkway Boulevard. And so we're working with them on that. So I think UDOT has been good to work with on this, and they know this is coming, and, you know, they share the belief that this will very quickly generate the traffic necessary to move forward. They will be installing all the conduit and all of the, you know, component parts there, and then retrofitting it once it warrants it.
They have already done so?
Yeah.
So I would imagine they'd at least done the conduit install across and the west side bases.
Yeah, I believe, I believe there's some conduit stubbed out for that particular purpose.
Because this ties in across from SSD. I mean, we know it's going to be warranted. I mean, I don't need a crystal ball. I just was curious if...
Yeah, you saw the obvious, and so congratulations.
I know.
I believe UDOT...
I just feel like I'm on the other side of the door watching UDOT push against the pole sign.
No, I think that, I believe they've already acquired the, kind of the entry monument from SSD as part of their land acquisitions and things like that, so they're already anticipating these types of things. Yeah.
Okay. Councilwoman Barch?
I've got one question that's more for staff. So as far as the school district goes, thank you, it's great. I love the continuity between the Stake Center to the south and how that's going to help with event parking and things like that. So my question for staff is, on the DAP on the ERUs, it's considerably off, and it was also for IHC, and we've seen this several times. So is this something that we're going to continue to see? Do we need to adjust that?
Yeah, there's a couple of other ways you can calculate ERUs. Engineering looks at it when they look at fixture counts, things like that. What we're looking at as far as the site goes for planning, there's only one way to calculate the ERUs in the DAP, and that's for 2165 square feet of non-residential use equals 1 ERU. That's what the 86 ERUs. So we'll take that ERU off of the total DAP, you know, as we're counting down the next 30, 40 years of developing this district, we'll take that number off of the permitted ERUs.
So the larger number comes off of the DAP?
Yes, yes.
Using the lower number for...
When engineering does fixture counts for impact for those, yes.
That's not even an ERU, that's an equivalent residential connection for the purposes of determining impact fees. The lower amount's not even related to ERUs as far as density and land use is concerned. That's governed by the DAP, like David mentioned.
Okay, any other comments?
I just had one, just to point out for residents that this field is not lit, correct? That with it being a middle school, they don't have lighting around the track and field, and so and the baseball, and so for residents and things around that, they're not going to have those lights, which is a huge benefit for them. Yeah, just a little stoplight as well is all I'm requesting for that.
I was thinking you were asking for it.
I just think it'll be ironic if the day after school opens, UDOT blocks traffic to put the light up and go, oh, it was needed.
Yeah, and everyone's like with the stop sign stopping.
It would actually be about 120 days after.
Okay. At least we're not too far off. Okay, we're going to start taking bids on this. Would you guys like in? Okay, I will entertain a, we don't have a motion.
I move that we approve.
Wait, do it at the same time.
Go ahead, Wilden.
Okay, Wilden's going to give the first, and Podesta, whoever.
It doesn't matter. I'll move that we approve the Saratoga Springs Middle School Village Plan, Community Plan, and other information listed on the agenda.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Wilden. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Porter. Any further comments?
Including all staff findings and conditions.
Okay, I have an amended first.
Amended second.
Any other discussion? Okay, roll call. Podesta.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Barch.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Motion passes
Dig, dig, dig.
unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Star Haven rezone. And we're just seeing all of the planning department tonight.
We had all 5, but
This is great.
sick today, so.
All right. So this is a rezone and general plan amendment, as well as a informal concept plan review. The request is similar to what you saw during your work session. The concept plan is the same. So on the slides, you're seeing land use on the left-hand side and the zoning on the right-hand side. So as mentioned, the concept plan is exactly the same as what you saw before. One change was made to your packets concerning the DA. There were a couple minor changes, the biggest one of which was the removal of the Planning Commission recital, as they did not forward a positive recommendation. They forwarded the item without a favorable recommendation, so that was just struck from the DA. So you have choices, as always, to approve or to continuance or denial.
Okay. Thank you for the very brief presentation. After you read this, it's nice. So, Councilman Podeska.
All right, so I have a few questions, because I know we've gone through this work session. But to me, as far as the trail on the east or west, when I look at the trailhead coming down through Harvest Hills, to me, it just makes sense that it would be on the east side. And that's my opinion on that, because they're not having to cross over 400 West and then cross back if they're heading over to commercial. That's just my perspective on that one, and I may be alone on that. Then as far as what it's already, so I'm seeing what it's currently zoned at, and then I look at general plan that we have. Now, are we moving that to, so in the general plan, is it office, as far as zoning? Because I see that, and I must have an old general plan on that.
So the general plan is, so not light yellow, you're seeing low density residential, and in the bright yellow, you're seeing very low density residential. So they're changing the very bright yellow to the low density residential. So the entire project will be low density residential.
And so as far as looking at that zoning, you know, we have regional commercial on both sides. So again, I look at Harvest Hills, and we don't have anything that's senior 55 plus community in Harvest Hills. Right. Yes, I understand. And so having that, you know, for me, I'm in favor of the development. You know, preference would be to see commercial all along that area, because we do have it on both sides. But as far as what's going in, and that's my thoughts on it. Leave it at that.
Okay, we'll skip you and go to Councilman McComber. Councilman Weldon.
Oh, okay. As far as the rezone goes, I mean, that's in alignment with general plan. It backs up on the north side of existing homes. I understand the planning commission's concern. The reality is, though, that's what the general plan is, and that was the expectation of the property owner. Since it will be wedged in commercial, I know we've done this in the past, but maybe requiring something on the title so when these people come in, they're going to be aware that there's commercial on both sides, so that in like whatever time period they come in, the commercial, we don't have these residents say, oh, how dare you put commercial in there, and as long as it's just abundantly clear to them, and that's consistent with what we've done in similar places. So I'd like to see that, and that's not an onerous or an extra cost or anything like that associated with that condition. And then we talk about we're rezoning from very low density to low density, but in one part of this, the smallest, what is it, phase one? Smallest lot size, like 8,000 square, almost it's 0.42 acres, so these are big lots. So just for whoever's watching, is we're still getting pretty dang low residential in phase one. So I know, like zoning, that's what it says in the code, but just to be clear, I classify that as really low density, which a lot of residents are clamoring for. And as far as the trail goes on the east side, that's fine, and we went through that. That was my commentary, and I believe in the staff report, it talked about that you're able to confirm that there will be connectivity with the existing trail and get it across the right place by having it on the east side.
Yes, we can make it work on the east side.
Okay. You can make it work, or
Yeah, either way, if it's on the west or the east, it's still accomplishing the same purpose.
I'm comfortable with that as well, so I think those are all my comments.
Okay. Sorry, I forgot one. What was resolved with the second exit, the road?
Yeah, larger road.
Okay, it didn't need to be larger. And do they need to have an exit coming out on the west side?
It'll tie into
Cozy Lane? Okay, okay. That's all.
Okay, Councilwoman McComber.
I don't really have any issues. I think we talked through this a lot in the previous phase of this development. Appreciate the, having this type of housing type spread throughout the city. I think that that's the goal, is to have different types of housing types throughout the whole city. That's part of the big vision of our land use, and I think this accomplishes that. I've never had a problem with the senior community in this area. The conversations were about other things. It was just recommendations that I gave to the developer. And obviously they can do what they want with their property in terms of how they build their buildings and and what kind of square footage and stuff that they want to put into those buildings. In terms of the trail, I'm fine as whatever works that the developer wants in terms of east or west, and they've made the agreements and they've got the approval from IHC and other people involved. As long as it meets the needs of the city long-term to have the flow, and you're saying it works on either side, then make it work on either side. So I'm good with that. So I'm looking forward to having this product in the northern part. So thank you.
Yeah, Councilwoman Barch.
Just for clarification, because I didn't see it in the findings again, at this point, they still have to drop one lot because they don't have a second access yet?
Yes.
Although it's stubbed out?
Yes.
Okay.
They don't, yeah.
And
So
that was still part of the findings, or we don't have to worry about it at this level?
I don't think we really need to worry about it at this level, because the code is very clear on that.
Okay. I just
And
didn't
the
see it in there, so
applicant
I
is
wanna make
fully aware of
Yeah.
that they have to
I
do
knew that they were aware, I just didn't see it in here, so I want to make sure. As far as the trail east and west, you all know well my preference is to have it along the canal, which doesn't work out in this particular case. So east-west, I don't really care. I think that there might be some misunderstanding as where people are coming from and where they're going to. Either way, people are going to be crossing 400, so that really doesn't matter, because Shea Park is on the west side of the road.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't matter, but there's a nice big roundabout there with plenty of pedestrian crossings, so either way, it's fine. As long as, and that's, I like the agreement that you've worked out where they're going to dedicate the land and you're going to build the trail as part of it, and we don't have to expend any additional public monies in order to get that done above and beyond. So the zone change I'm fine with. We've talked a lot about this. I think that the product is great, it's fine. And that's, I think, all that we need, so we're good.
We did this last time.
We did this last time,
Okay.
yeah.
Councilman Porter.
No, I don't have anything to add. I am in support of the councilman, one of them brought up as far as putting something on the title. Just so that these people will go in with eyes wide open as far as what's going in around them, so that we don't have hordes of people showing up in 10 years saying, I didn't know. So I think that's a good.
It never hurts to over-communicate.
No. Yeah, exactly. So I think that this will be great, and I think that I look forward to it being in this part of the city.
Okay. Does the applicant have anything they'd like to add before we call for a motion? Yeah, if you would.
I think the applicant was going to make a request for a certain, just minor tweak to the development agreement. Is that correct? About the trail and the UDOT property portion.
Yes.
Okay.
Would you like me to do that, or do you want to do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
In the development agreement, it calls for me to provide landscaping and maintenance from my property boundary to the surface area of Crossroads Boulevard. And part of that is owned by UDOT, a smaller part of it. But I have no control over UDOT. I can't even get them to return phone calls. And so while I would be, and so basically it was amended so that that landscaping improvement would go to the UDOT property ownership along the old highway. Maybe you could show.
Yeah, there's just a very small corner. There's not a clear delineation between where Crossroads ends and Pioneer Crossing starts, and there's just a very small corner of property that Ken was concerned about. In the development agreement, the intent of the recent draft was for him to maintain the city portion, or to install the trail and maintain it on the city's portion of Crossroads. And then that corner of UDOT property, we're not necessarily concerned about addressing that because of just the small area of that property. So he would install to the city property line between, you see that yellow line that Kara's pointing to, that's where the city's property line ends for Crossroads.
So he would install and maintain to that point?
Yes.
Come along Crossroads, right here.
What is?
And just clarifying that a little bit better in the agreement.
Yeah. What is UDOT's plan there? I mean, we've talked to them about, because that's how we found out that we didn't need to make a larger road across that east-west connector. So what is their plan for this area? I don't want to leave a no-man land that's going to be weed patch next to their nice landscaping. Just saying, because then it makes it really hard. Soccer field for ants? Do we know?
I'm not sure that there's much that we could do as far as forcing UDOT to comply with any sort of standards, landscaping and mowing weeds, and they would claim to be exempt from our land use ordinances.
And did you already make that change in the DA, or do we need to add that to our motion?
There's some, I don't know, it's just not 100% clear in the development agreement.
So we just need to add to clean up the DA to clarify.
Clarify that the trail obligation ends at the city's property line, the city and UDOT property line on Crossroads. Yeah, that's a possibility too. Yeah, I'm not sure why. It's interesting that that's where the property line ends.
I don't know either, unless, like I said, they're going to widen that area out or something as they make their ginormous interchange.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I can get that.
Yeah.
I can make this work.
We can make that clarification unless the city is able to obtain ownership of that portion.
Okay.
I did have one comment I'd like to make. The property that is adjacent to the west is zoned agricultural. It's the next property over, a narrow piece that is zoned commercial.
But it's in our land use plan as regional commercial, even though it's zoned agricultural.
It's zoned land use is commercial.
You're right.
No.
I think the entire
is
land use
agriculture.
area was changed. I think the whole, Dave, if you'll pull up the city map really quick, so they can see the properties to the west.
Oh, I can see that. There's a whole big block in between the two, Michael.
But
Yeah.
it still borders regional
On the other
commercial
side.
on the east side.
Yeah.
On
The regional commercial on the east side, the IHC.
Property is regional commercial.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's fine. I'll move that we approve Star Haven rezone from agricultural and rural residential to regional commercial to R19 and R110, and the general plan from very low residential to low residential, and the concept plan and development agreement. Ken Evans, applicant, northwest corner of 400 West and Crossroads Boulevard, ordinance 18-3 dated today, adding, including all staff findings and conditions, adding a condition to clarify the DA with staff as to the trail obligation, and that the trail obligation would end at the city property line unless the city is able to obtain that from UDOT, in which case it would go all the way to the end of that area. Also adding, what was the other thing we needed to add?
Title.
Oh, yeah, and adding a note on the plat and the titles about the proximity to commercial uses.
Okay, I have a first from Councilwoman Barch.
Second.
Second, Councilman McComber. Any further discussion on the, yes, Kevin?
So again, just like we talked about before with the concept plan, we're not approving the concept plan. So, yeah.
Remove the concept plan.
Okay, we've got an amended motion to remove the concept and an amended second. Any other comments? Roll call. McComber.
Aye.
Barch.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Tedesca.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have the minutes from January 2nd, January 16th.
I move that we approve the minutes from January 2nd, 2018 and January 16th, 2018 with all changes submitted. I think, I don't know if it's on mine, but.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Porter, second from Councilman McComber. Any further comments?
Yeah, do I abstain from the January 16th one? I wasn't in
No, you still
attendance.
You can still approve
You can
it.
still approve it.
Okay.
Yep.
You just didn't have anything to say.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, roll call, Tedesca.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Barch.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have our,
Closed session.
what? No, Veterans Advisory Board. Daniel is here. You take a minute and introduce yourself.
Just so you know, you are on camera too.
So turn around and wave.
Wave to the camera up there.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, and good evening, council members. I'm Dan Harmuth, retired colonel from the United States Army, spent 30 years in. First, I'd like to thank my wife, Athena, and my daughter, Liesel, for being here with me tonight and listening in on all the zonings and stuff like that. Anyways, I'm excited to be able to serve the citizens and veterans in the city of Saratoga Springs. Me and my family moved in here in July, and we're excited to be here. We really love the city and the neighborhoods and everybody here. And after serving the federal government and the nation for over 30 years, been deployed to the Middle East 4 times, and but after serving the nation, I look forward to serving the community and serving those veterans that live in the community and being of service. So here, I'm also work for UTA as the IT director, and so that's a little bit about me.
Thank you for your willingness to volunteer. This is something that Councilman Porter has been dear to him to get this advisory committee going to our city. As you were, I don't know if you're aware, we've got the Veterans Wall going in into Patriot Park and various activities going on. And so this committee is a big part of what we've got going on in our community. Our chief behind you has an extensive military career also.
Fellow colonel.
Very good.
What was that?
He's a fellow colonel.
Fellow colonel. I think it's a double colonel. I was like, never heard of that one. Colonel Chief. So, but yes, we appreciate your willingness to serve, and to your wife and daughter, thank you. Community service is a love of the community and a volunteer, and if he's gone and busy, we know the sacrifices you make so that he can make the community better, so thank you also. Any comments from the council? Or?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm just excited that Colonel Harmuth brings us up to a full complement on the council, so they're doing some great work already, so it's been exciting to see them already.
All right, great. Yeah. So. Looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your patience. Because I'm sure zoning was the most exciting thing. Perfect.
You're enjoying this winter.
They postponed it until you arrived.
Advertising. It's
Yes.
very mild, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, did you guys vote on that?
Yeah.
Earlier.
Okay, good.
We just wanted to make sure.
Yep, no, that's fantastic.
Okay, motion to enter into closed session. Okay, I have a first from
Second.
Councilman Converse, second from Councilwoman Barch. All in favor? Aye.
Mayor, I hate to ask this, do we need to do goals before we do closed session? So does staff need to be here for goals?
Actually, we can just adjourn over into a work session
For the closed session?
For the goals. For
Okay.
the goals.
Oh, for the goals, okay.
We'll use this room for closed session, and then we'll just adjourn into the conference room for goal setting.
Okay. All right, perfect. Thank you.
Basically.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, begrudgingly.